Have you ever wondered what it would be like to own something so rare and valuable that the future generations will talk about it like in a myth? Think of a whole Bitcoin. It might sound impossible, but let me tell you why owning even a fraction of a Bitcoin can be your ticket to a great financial future. First, let's bust a common myth. You don't need to buy a whole Bitcoin. Bitcoin can be divided in satoshis, small units, and there are 100 million satoshis in a whole Bitcoin. So even if you own just a few satoshis, you're already in a club of people that understand what is happening in financial world. Watch this video until the end to discover why owning even a fraction of a Bitcoin could change your financial future forever. Let's start this topic by breaking down where all the Bitcoin in the world is. According to data from late 2024, which moves almost as fast as Bitcoin itself, here is how it's distributed. Satoshi Nakamoto, the mysterious creator, holds about 968,000 Bitcoin, and they're not moving anytime soon, possibly never. Here it says that about 1.57 million Bitcoin are lost forever, but there are also some estimations that it is more likely 3 to 4 million Bitcoin that are lost forever, locked in wallets whose owners forgot their keys. They are gone like treasure chests, buried with no map. Individuals own the majority of the circulating Bitcoin, though that number is shrinking as businesses, ETFs, and even governments are stepping up their game. Now let's address another common misconception. Is Bitcoin ownership centralized? You have probably heard people claim that a handful of wallets hold all the Bitcoin. While it's technically true, those wallets largely belong to exchanges like Coinbase or Binance, which hold Bitcoin on behalf of millions of users. So it's not some shady elite hoarding all the Bitcoin, it's people like you and me trusting exchanges to store their coins, which is actually not a good idea. It is much better to store it in your own wallet in cold storage. But here is the kicker. The share of Bitcoin owned by individuals is shrinking. Why? Because businesses, ETFs, and governments are scooping up Bitcoin like it's the last piece of the cake at the party. ETFs now hold over 1 million Bitcoin, businesses are hoarding it for their own balance sheets, and even governments are acquiring more of it. So where are they getting all this Bitcoin? Answer to that question is from individuals who are selling. Every time someone trades their Bitcoin for cash, it's likely going to these larger players. And while you can always choose to sell your Bitcoin, the demand is only increasing. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine a future where Bitcoin becomes so integral to global finance as the internet is to communication. Wouldn't you want to hold on to even the smallest fraction of it, knowing that it could be your key to financial freedom in a world where owning a full Bitcoin might be seen as owning an apartment on Manhattan? Let's dive into the numbers and truly understand what makes Bitcoin so unique. Step 1. The supply limit. There will be only ever 21 million Bitcoin, no more and no less. Divide that evenly among the world's 8 billion people, and the theoretical fair share for each person comes out to just 262,500 satoshis. That's 0.002625 Bitcoin, a shockingly small amount. And right now, acquiring that share might only cost a few $100s. But here is where it gets interesting. Not everyone will get their fair share. As of 2025, only 114 million people globally own Bitcoin in any capacity. That's just 1.4% of the global population. Most of these individuals own fraction of Bitcoin, a testament to its divisibility and rising value. Now let's talk percentiles. To join the top 1% of Bitcoin holders, you need about 0.28 Bitcoin. But owning just one entire Bitcoin, that catapults you into the top 0.25% of all Bitcoin holders, an exclusive club within an already elite group. Relative to the global population, this places you in the 0.0026 percentile. That's 1 in 385,000 people worldwide. The scarcity becomes even more staggering when you factor in the practical availability of Bitcoin. We've already discussed how millions of Bitcoin are lost forever because the private keys are lost, and those coins are simply inaccessible. This means the actual supply is far less than 21 million. What's left is being increasingly gobbled by the institutions, funds, and governments. Think about it. Companies like MicroStrategy and ETFs are buying up Bitcoin faster than it's being mined. Even some Bitcoin miners, like Marathon Digital, are holding onto their newly mined Bitcoin instead of selling. Meanwhile, governments are getting in on the action, accumulating reserves. With institutions and nations stockpiling Bitcoin, the supply available to individuals is shrinking rapidly. This brings us to the value proposition. Owning just one Bitcoin doesn't just make you part of the elite group of holders. It gives you an asset that's 555 times the average person's entire lifetime savings. For many people globally, 262,500 Satoshis could represent their entire net worth. Owning one full Bitcoin puts you leagues ahead in terms of financial positioning. And here's fun mathematical exercise. Start with 21 million Bitcoin, subtract the millions lost, subtract what's held by institutions, companies, and governments, and what remains is the diminishing pool available for individual ownership. It's no wonder the phrase "hodl for dear life" has become a mantra in the Bitcoin community. Now, if you ever wonder why people compare Bitcoin to digital gold, this scarcity is your answer. Gold is finite, but Bitcoin takes it one step further. It's finite and can never be recovered once lost. That makes every Satoshi even more scarce and valuable as adoption grows and awareness spreads. Institutions and nations holding Bitcoin often do so with a long-term perspective. For instance, the Bitcoin bill proposed by Senator Cynthia Lummis outlines that the US will maintain a strategic stockpile of 1 million Bitcoin for no less than 20 years. This underscores a significant commitment to Bitcoin as a long-term asset. Corporations also approach Bitcoin as a long-term play. Businesses aim for longevity, often spanning decades and centuries. Their holdings are unlikely to re-enter the market anytime soon, reducing the circulating supply for individuals even further. Taking these factors into account, after excluding institutional and national reserves, around 14.5 million Bitcoin remain available for individual ownership. Divide this among 8 billion people, and each person's theoretical share shrinks to 181,000 Satoshis, less than 0.002 Bitcoin. I think that you can already see how rare it will be to own even half of one full Bitcoin in the future with considering all of these numbers. Currently, 450 Bitcoin are mined daily. This number halves approximately every 4 years during the Bitcoin halving events, a critical aspect of its deflationary design. Over time, mining rewards will dwindle, eventually dropping to fractions of Bitcoin per block. Skeptics often argue that this diminishing reward will make mining unprofitable. However, history shows otherwise. After every halving, the price of Bitcoin has risen to meet or exceed the costs of mining. This dynamic ensures miners remain incentivized. As mining becomes more competitive and energy intensive, the value of Bitcoin must increase to justify operations. Looking further ahead, miners may eventually spend an entire decade mining a single Bitcoin as rewards become increasingly scarce. By then, the world will likely be fighting over Satoshis, not whole Bitcoins. This highlights why owning Bitcoin today is akin to securing a scarce and appreciating heirloom, something you can pass down through generations. To understand Bitcoin's significance, it's essential to examine the current global financial system. Wealth distribution is heavily skewed. 0.7% of the population, the ultra-rich, earning over 1 million annually, control about 50% of world's wealth. Those earning between $100,000 and 1 million annually, they represent 7% of population and they control around 40% of global wealth. Then we have people who are earning between $10,000 and $100,000 and they just control 11% of global wealth. A staggering 70% of the world earning less than $10,000 annually controls a mere 2.7% of global financial resources. This disparity is exacerbated by the Cantillon effect, which describes how those closest to the money printer, like governments, banks, and large corporations, benefit the most. They effectively create money for free, while the average person must work for it, and by the way, they are losing the purchasing power over time due to inflation. Bitcoin disrupts this system. Its finite supply and decentralized nature mean no one can print more to devalue the holdings of others. By owning Bitcoin, you're opting out of a system where wealth is disproportionately funneled to the top. Instead, Bitcoin offers a fair and transparent alternative where value is preserved across generations. This is why holding Bitcoin today isn't just about personal wealth. It's a way to protect your family's future. By understanding its scarcity, mining dynamics, and role in financial inequality, you position yourself as a part of a financial revolution that could reshape global wealth distributions for decades to come. One of the most common misconceptions about Bitcoin is that you need to buy an entire coin. This simply isn't true. Bitcoin is divisible into smaller units, just like dollars are divided into cents. The smallest unit of Bitcoin is the Satoshi, named after its mysterious creator, Satoshi Nakamoto. One Bitcoin is equal to 100 million Satoshis. Here is a quick breakdown. Bitcoin, BTC, equals 100 million Satoshis. One Satoshi equals 0.000000001 Bitcoin. Other terms like UBIT and MBIT or BitCent are technically correct but rarely used. Let's keep it simple. Just say Satoshis. If you own 1 million Satoshis, you effectively own 0.01 Bitcoin. This divisibly ensures that Bitcoin remains accessible to everyone regardless of its price. As Bitcoin's value increases, most people will transact in Satoshis rather than whole coins. Just as you would expect to buy a house with $1 bill, you won't need an entire Bitcoin to make everyday transactions. Michael Saylor famously called Bitcoin Cyber Manhattan or digital real estate. Think of Bitcoin as owning a piece of prime land in a digital economy. Just as Manhattan, real estate is finite and incredibly valuable, so is Bitcoin. Only 21 million will ever exist. This scarcity is what makes Bitcoin so appealing as a store of value. This chart shows the distribution of millionaires worldwide. North America has approximately 22 million millionaires, Europe has approximately 16 million, Asia Pacific has 10 million, and China alone has about 6 million. If you're a millionaire, you're in top 1% globally. There are approximately 62 million millionaires worldwide according to Credit Suisse. And let's break this down. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin. Of that, an estimated 14.5 million Bitcoin remain for individual ownership after accounting for lost coins and institutional holdings. This means if every millionaire tried to own one Bitcoin, they simply couldn't. There aren't enough coins. On average, each millionaire would only own about 0.233 Bitcoin, which is when 14.5 million divided by 62 million, and owning even a quarter of a Bitcoin puts you ahead of most millionaires globally. As Bitcoin adoption grows, the realization of its scarcity will dry up demand and its price. Fiat currency loses value over time due to inflation, much like a melting ice cube. This erosion of purchasing power disproportionately affects those holding large amounts of cash or traditional savings. Bitcoin, in contrast, acts as a hedge against inflation. Its fixed supply ensures it cannot be devalued by excessive printing. As the largest global wealth transfer in history unfolds, Bitcoin offers individuals a chance to protect and grow their wealth in a system that's immune to centralized manipulation. Here is how dollar is getting weak over time. The depreciation of fiat currency is starkly illustrated by the US dollar. Since the Federal Reserve's creation in 1913, the dollar's purchasing power has declined by 97%. This chart doesn't even account for the excessive money printing during 2020 and 2021, which further accelerated inflation. Wages haven't kept pace with the rising costs of living, meaning your purchasing power continues to shrink even if your nominal income stays the same. Bitcoin, on the other hand, maintains its value. This is the key reason why people are turning to Bitcoin as a hedge against inflation and a store of value. On the other hand, Bitcoin has a fixed supply which ensures its scarcity and makes it nearly impossible to be too late to invest in. Even small amounts like owning 0.01 Bitcoin can put you far ahead of the average person. Today, 0.01 Bitcoin costs around $1,000, but not long ago it was just $400. Back in 2023, it was only $160. As Bitcoin appreciates over time, even a fraction of Bitcoin will become unaffordable for most people. The dollar, by contrast, depreciates. A burger that once cost 10 cents is now $10 or more, and in some places even $20. The same inflation has driven Bitcoin's value up as it resists to the dilution caused by fiat money printing. This brings us to the famous Bitcoin story, the purchase of 2 large pizzas for 10,000 Bitcoin by an early Bitcoin user known as Laszlo. While many consider it the worst trade ever, with those 10,000 Bitcoins now worth billions, it was actually one of the most important moments in Bitcoin's history. This transaction established Bitcoin's first real-world value and paved the way for its journey to become a global asset. Without it, we might not even have a price chart to discuss today, so that's why it is so significant. Bitcoin is more than just an asset, it's a paradigm shift in how we think about money and financial freedom. As fiat currencies like dollars and euros are losing their purchasing power, Bitcoin is becoming very relevant in today's world economy. Remember, even a small fraction of a Bitcoin today could have a massive significance in the future. If you found this video helpful, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications in order not to miss the future content. Thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next one.